Welcome to Voices Against Violence, a Harmony House podcast to educate, empower, and serve as a voice for survivors. We aim to shed light on crucial issues surrounding domestic violence, offer support, and inspire action for change. Join us as we work together to create a community where all individuals can live a life free of abuse.
Welcome back to Voices Against Violence. My name is Kirstyn Walker. I am the Assistant Executive Director at Harmony House.
Charity Jordan Rex. I'm the Prevention Program Manager for Harmony House. And this is our last episode of February, Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So if you're just catching this episode, please go back and listen to some of the others because I feel like we had some really good conversations this month. But I'm really excited because, we periodically have staff on to talk about their role and how they impact survivors. And so I'm really excited to finally have our family advocate coordinator on the podcast, Misty. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your role here at Harmony House. I think you are the longest tenured staff.
Yes.
Is that so? And I feel like this is maybe a side conversation, but this is our 50th anniversary. You're the staff that's been here the longest. Tell us kind of your journey at Harmony House.
Yeah. So I actually started out as a advocate in the advocate office. So I did that for about 3.5 years. And then I joined Family Advocacy, and now I'm the Family Advocacy Program Coordinator. So I've seen a lot of growth within our agency, both staff-wise, but also programming. When I first started, we actually only had maybe one class a day that we offered clients. And now we have a variety of classes and programming. We invite a lot of people inside from the community to do financial literacy. We do pet therapy, just a wide plethora of opportunities for clients to engage with.
When Misty says that they have a wide plethora, it is a overwhelming amount of programming. I don't know how they keep it all straight, and it's such thoughtful programming. Mm-hmm. So it is all centered around our trauma-informed lens of the Full Frame Initiative, and everything relates back to the domains of well-being. It's so well thought out, and there is just something for everybody. I stay continually impressed by the calendar of events you all have.
Constantly. Misty, you and your team, you're programming extraordinaires because, for those who have no idea the programming that they're providing for residents in shelter. And I love to share with folks, we have kids in shelter. Mm-hmm. So it's you and your team who provide those experiences, those traditional childhood experiences, to create that sense of stability and normalcy. So Easter egg hunts and, presents at Christmas time, and you always do a trunk or treat. You do so much, but it's overwhelming, but you do such a great job with everything.
It is a lot. I love what I do because we have such flexibility with having a wide variety of things to do. I love working with all ages, including adults. And so every day is different. We like to provide as many opportunities for people in all of the 5 domains, but my favorite is social connectedness. And so just getting people out there and opening their eyes to things that maybe they haven't experienced before. I love a good theme, and so Full Frame is really helpful for that. So, we have mastery, meaningful access to relevant resources, safety, stability, social connectedness. So most of our program does tie back into one of those. We want people to feel welcome, so we even do classes on Celebrate Diversity so that people can, see other cultures or just the different ways that people live. And so that it's a safe environment to learn new things, essentially.
Mm-hmm. I love that you talked about social connectedness, and so much of what you do is about that. We mentioned that in a previous episode, where that is one of the best preventative factors for young people is that social connectedness. Before we get into that though, just give us a sense of what a typical day or a typical, an average week looks like for you and your role.
Well, every day is different. That's why I like it. Some days, we're doing lesson planning. Some days we are providing resource fairs, things of that nature. Some days we have, because one of the part of our job is providing what we call short-term childcare services. And so sometimes parents are doing goal-oriented tasks such as case management meetings or doctor's appointment, things of that nature. So we'll be playing games with kiddos in the family room. Yesterday we got to take them outside, which was really nice because it was beautiful. So just a wide gamut. And then we try to also, we like to have the educational component with the recreational. And so we're always sneaking in little fun learning moments. And just even when you're playing, especially with older kids, a simple board game, you have time to have a conversation and kind of talk about things that might be important to them, or even you have the opportunity to redirect conversations if, when they say things that maybe are inappropriate, or, give them better words to use, and teaching them how to handle big emotions. Yeah.
I love that. It's really the gamut of kind of their whole personhood. I'm curious, since, you have been here long enough, like you were here before when we were in multiple houses, and, how have you seen how has your role changed? But do you have a sense of maybe how our role in the community has changed in that time? Do you see a difference?
Yeah. When I first started, I would say this role was very much more children oriented, like specifically, and now we really encompass the whole family, including even individuals in shelter that maybe don't necessarily have children with them. And so we've really tried to, as family advocates, we are here for all of the clients. And so we consider them all our clients, not just the children, not just the parents. And so that has changed drastically over the years. And I also think agency-wise, our perspective on children are whole human beings as well. And that, to me, is very important. If we want to break the cycle, we have to start doing it the younger. Really, from birth on would be my preference. And so we really, as family advocates, hold that near and dear. And so that's one of the things that we are really proud of. I'm really proud of that we've accomplished over the years, is really viewing children as whole beings, and also doing things in their best benefit. And then as an agency, when I first started, people didn't really know who Harmony House was, what we did. We had, I think, on a good day, we had 20 employees. And so now we have like 65 plus. And that is just, there is a staff member for every single niche. And I just think that is fantastic. I never would have thought we would have had like a prevention education. And so, because we just really wore all hats back then, which is not always feasible for long-term stability. But we've definitely grown.
Wow. So the agency is not only tripled in size in the time that you've been here, but it is also, sounds like it's just taken strides in the seeing folks as whole humans, especially seeing kids as whole humans, and really creating thoughtful programming around that. Well, we are wrapping up our Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And so one thing that Charity and I were talking about when we had discussed having you on and getting to pick your brain about what you do in shelter, is what does life look like for a teen in shelter?
Well, that can really vary depending on the child or the teenager. Sometimes, teenagers, they split time between Harmony House and maybe with their other parent, which sometimes is not the abusive partner. Sometimes they're also, some of them might have jobs. The teenagers are also welcome to come to a lot of our adult-oriented programming, specifically the ones about like financial literacy and employment literacy, because that's really, I've been working since I was 15. And so that was such a outlet for me, but also social connectedness. And it's never too early to learn how to manage your money. So we welcome them to come to programming like that. We also, when we have enough teens that are interested, we'll do like teen nights and things of that nature. That's one of the fun things that I enjoy doing with the teenagers. And so we'll have like, I know you mentioned One Love previously on one of the podcasts. And so we use that curriculum. And so we'll have healthy relationship conversations. But also we focus, specifically with teens as well, just reminding them that it's all relationships that need to be healthy, not just romantic. So that could be your relationship between your parents, your siblings. You're allowed to set boundaries with anyone. And so giving them the tools to do that.
I love that. I just spoke with a group last week of college students. And whenever I'm talking to young people, well, anybody, but especially young people, I always say, yes, you might be thinking of dating, but really this healthy relationship applies to every single relationship. So your coworkers, your roommates, and so I think that idea is still novel for a lot of young people. And the idea that like you have a right to set boundaries in all of those relationships. Like I said that and it was a pin drop moment. I mean, I feel like, so I love that you really are kind of meeting like full circle, both their social needs, but like what their life is going to look like once they leave shelter. So you're giving them tools that they can use when they leave. I wonder if you're able to speak to maybe some of the challenges that you see with teens that come in with their families.
Some challenges I would say
like that they have experienced, like, because I think there's maybe a misunderstanding or misconception about how young people are impacted.
They are carrying a lot of weight on their shoulders, especially if they have like younger siblings. They are often a second parent, and so they're juggling reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also, did the baby get fed this morning? Does mom need help with this? Does dad need help with that? And so just giving them a safe space so they can just be, by themselves to reflect on their emotions, giving, even having space from their siblings, who they often love very much, but that can also be, really draining for a teenager when you're doing all these things and you're like, I just need a moment to myself.
One of the comments that I sometimes hear when I'm out is, why would teens get into an abusive relationship? Like, don't they know?
No, they
that
don't.
that behavior isn't right. So I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit.
They don't. Well, they practice what they've seen. And I think as a parent, it's really important. Children are more likely to focus on what you're doing than what you're saying. And so if you're not having those positive relationships, even outside of romantic relationships, in your life, then they're just working with what you've given them. And so it's important to set the example. And that's also even the way my staff treat each other in front of the kids. It's with respect and dignity and modeling that. And so I think a lot of teens, they don't have that. I know growing up, I didn't have a lot of healthy relationships. They weren't necessarily terrible, but I also knew I had other outlets. And so that's where I was able to learn better skills than just what was going on in my environment. And so that's what we try to provide for all of our kids in shelter, but especially the teenagers.
So what do those conversations look like with teens? Because you said, obviously you are talking to them about healthy relationships. I feel like a lot of parents are really, not that they don't want to, but I think they
don't know where to start sometimes.
They don't know where to start maybe.
Yeah.
And so how do you begin that conversation?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've done in the past with teenagers is we would do like a Saturday programming. And so we would have lunch together and just have like table conversation starters and just getting them comfortable. Because also sometimes when they're in shelter, they're very new. And so you're not going to open up to strangers. So you have to kind of segue into conversations. But I really like the One Love curriculum because they had a lot of fun activities, conversation starters really, that you could do with the kids that talked about boundaries and self-esteem, even bullying. I think that's a lot of things that our teenagers specifically experience also in shelter. It's hard being in shelter, and if your classmates know, that adds a whole extra layer to that. And I see a lot of teenagers also getting into relationships younger and younger. And so that's also talking about, what are some other focuses that you might like to do, encouraging their hobbies. If they're like, I want to go to medical school, then you talk about, well, here are some valuable resources that you can do, tutoring and things of that nature. So just meeting each kid and teenager where they are is beneficial. And we also work with the parent to model that behavior and also be like, hey, we noticed, teenager express this interest. Have you looked into these resources at school? Because that might be beneficial. Or I really hate when a kid is being bullied at school. And so giving them resources for that as well. I had one kid once just came home sobbing because they had a horrible incident at school. And it was a very minor fix. And we were able to fix that to build their confidence so they could go back to school the next day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm just soaking it in, and you're serving, you and your team serve as a resource hub for both the teens and the adults. You're modeling that behavior. So you're just providing that trusted adult. And we talked so much about just that social connectedness, protective factor of peers, but then also other trusted adults other than parents that can be in that young person's life to help show them what those things look like in real life. So I'm soaking it in, Misty, because the way that you're talking about the work that you're doing, it's just so in alignment with what we know to be best practices in dating violence prevention.
Yeah, I love the way you're talking about the opportunities for modeling it with parents, because I think that's really key, that they also are able to see the experts. Okay, this is how we can do this. And that idea about kind of starting soft, I think even with your own teenagers, like, you know, you're not gonna be like, okay, let's sit down and talk about dating violence. Like, you kind of need to ease your way into that.
You have to create a safe space, and you can't notice a problem and just immediately go in if you haven't built that rapport. And so that's kind of, you know, what we like to encourage and model. One of the greatest compliments I ever received from a parent was like, they were like, man, I really watch how you speak to the kids, and I'm really picking up some good habits. And so I was like, oh, because sometimes you're like, no one's listening. But then you get a compliment like that. You're like, wow, they are watching. So even the adults are watching. And so that made me feel really good. I was like, okay, we are on the right path.
Yeah, you are. Oh my gosh. I wonder if you, I'm thinking about the parents who are listening, like, what advice would you have for them? Because I have friends who have reached out to me because I'm the face of Harmony House since they know me. And they're like, how do I support my young person who I think has just gotten into this toxic relationship? Like, what does support look like? Like, what have you found that is like most helpful?
Well, I would say always be observant of your teen and noticing even the little things. And then no one has all the information. And so reaching out to a plethora of, you know, agencies and resource materials, and each kid is different. And so the way you're going to respond to them is going to be different than maybe your other child or even a family friend. And so just finding what works best for your teen. And there are a lot of plethora of information out there. One Love, YIPA is great. I encourage YIPA, even if you just work with humans, period. YIPA is really great. So, but they have a lot of, you know, resources of how to talk to kids about everything, every single topic that you can imagine. And so that's really everything from self-esteem to, you know, getting into like, you know, if a teen is having gender identity issues, things of that nature. And so knowledge is power. And I just love my team and I, one of my family advocates, Laura, is always like, she loves researching all of the new resources and trends and like, hey, maybe we should try this. And so we'll try it with clients. And if it works, we're like, you know, we also created, my team created, Laura and Livia specifically, they put together a 3 C's of parenting. And so that really helps talk about the way that you can have conversations with your kids, calming challenging behaviors, things of that nature. And so I think there's just a lot of information out there. So to me, I'm always like, I just pretend I know nothing. And I'm like, so each case is different. And I'm like, well, what can best serve this client? And so I'm like, well, let's look at what we have available and see what can fit for them. Because there's no one size fits all.
I love that. That is a really relatable approach.
And I'm sitting over here wanting to know the 3 C's of parenting. What are they?
Yeah, so it is an online curriculum course that Laura and Livia put together, I think 2 years ago, because, you know, everyone always wants like parenting classes, but then there's not a one size fits all.
Sure.
And so we wanted to create something that was more self-paced and had the basics. So we focus on choices and connection. And so each material has like reflection activity and resources, and just it gives parents the opportunity to kind of be like, with each lesson, how is it that I parent? How do I want to parent? What does successful parenting look like to me? And so it's a really great, just, you can do them from, you know, top to bottom. You can mix and match, just whatever works for you as a parent, whatever you're particularly struggling with.
Choice, connection. What's the third C?
Collaboration, because you're in collaboration with your child. And so I think a lot of times parents are, it's easier. Yes, I know that sometimes like a child they're like, I want to tie my shoe and I know I could do it faster. But, and so maybe you plan ahead so they have the time to tie their shoe instead of waiting till right before you need to be out the door. And so there's just different tips and strategies in that curriculum. And so I was very proud of them for the work that they put into that. And so.
Well, and Misty, as you were describing that, you said my team and I created, and I thought full stop. Like that's, if I had to describe family advocacy in one sentence, it's Misty and team created, because you all are so good about, if there's a need, you use the resources, you create something to fit that individual need. And I just don't know that people, and I don't know, I think we could probably expand on the amount of fun that is happening in shelter.
Oh my goodness.
One of my first exposures to family advocacy was around a Harry Potter trivia that was hosted around Halloween. We're talking costumes.
You had butterbeer too, didn't you?
I did. Well, that was really
all the stuff.
They do.
That was a fun event, and that was, Carly had came and had this idea that her Melissa had thought, and I was like, that's great. We can go half and half. And so, because we usually have the access to all the materials, and I love to reuse things like decorations and things, because we're nonprofit, so we want to make sure that we're conserving our resources. And so, but that was a fun event. And so it was, clients could come, staff could come. That's one of the things that we've increased over the years is staff and resident connection. And so we not only do fun pop-up activities like that, but we also do lunch and launch and dinner and dialogue. And so that's an opportunity for all clients to come together with staff to talk about programming, services, or even just have fun and do Harry Potter trivia, even if you never heard of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
People had fun.
Yeah. The having fun part, you all have so tapped into the power of fun and dopamine and how it relates to the science of hope. And so it's all so thoughtful. And that's just the word that keeps coming to mind, is it's just so thoughtfully created.
Mm-hmm. We love to do some myth busting here on the podcast. And I know, having worked with teens myself in other roles, there are a lot of misconceptions about teens. And I wonder if there's one, misconception that you think a lot of adults have about teens that you'd like to set the record straight on.
I think in general, people always assume like my teen is not aware of that thing. And I'm like, no, they are. I've heard their conversations. And so never assume that your kid is doesn't know about drugs or things of a sexual nature, or doesn't at least have a friend that's in a situation, because they do. And they are often very good at hiding it, especially if you have not created a safe space. And so I think that is the biggest misconception, is just that not my teen. I'm like, well, that's debatable.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really good point.
It is.
Your teen knows more than you think they do.
Yes.
But this is why you got to have those conversations, so that you can give them the accurate
early and often. Because if you're not having the conversation, someone else is filling in those answers.
They are. And it's usually not always the right answer.
Right.
Almost never.
Or even if it's not right, it's not the answer maybe you would be most comfortable with. Yeah.
Probably isn't the safest answer.
Yeah, right.
What do you think adults who are working with teens need to know? Like, for not just the parents, but maybe educators or service providers, like what's a piece of wisdom that you would share for folks who are working with teens?
I would say get comfortable with being uncomfortable. There are a lot of tough conversations that you have to have with teenagers, and just kids in general. And so you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, but also vulnerable. And so being able to relate to them and, sometimes share your own experiences, keeping in mind boundaries. But, I grew up in a, kind of a poor background, and not necessarily domestic violence related, but wasn't always the best. There's definitely opportunity for better improvement. But I had safe people, a lot of safe people that I could go to and talk to, and they made the world of difference. And it's part of why I'm here today.
Get comfortable with getting uncomfortable.
It is.
Here we go.
We say that a lot. I wonder if you can just briefly tell us how you got to that place. How did you get comfortable being uncomfortable?
Part of me, I'm very adaptable. And so I think naturally I'm adaptable. I'm also an introvert. So whenever I go into an environment, I'm scoping out the scene and trying to find out who's the safe person. And so now as an adult, I try to be the safe person, someone that others can come to and be like, well, maybe she can help. I don't always have the answer, but I can usually point you to someone who has a better answer. And I just love human connection and working with people. And so just, and each day is different and you just got to hang on in there, put one foot in front of the other. Sometimes we have really tough days when we're working with our kids in shelter. Life is not fair. You wish that they could, have, better home environments and have all the love in the world. But sometimes it's just giving them the tools to be safe in the moment and trying to plan for the future.
I love that. Okay, I just have the last questions. What's the hardest part of your job? What's the best part of your job?
The best part is the people. I love meeting, like I said, all varieties of people, and I love working from infants to 99. And so I think that's the best part. And just the opportunity, especially here, being able to learn and grow over the years. I feel like I have really been presented with an opportunity not to be stagnant in who I am as a person and also professionally. And then I think the toughest thing is I just wish the laws would catch up and that we could just really start holding people accountable for their actions.
Man, that sounds like a great topic for a podcast episode, some legislative advocacy around DV. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Misty, this has just been such a great and I think eye-opening conversation, even though I would have said I felt like I knew a lot of what you did, but just hearing your perspective on the work and working with young people, just snaps all around.
Yeah. And I just really hope that our listeners, I don't know that everybody has a great understanding of what being in shelter looks like. And so just that added information around the fact that there is programming happening, that it's thoughtfully provided, and that there's a purpose behind it. It is to create safer environments and social connectedness. And just the work you and your team create is just, it's phenomenal.
It is so much joy and hope and in the midst of what's can be a really hard and challenging environment. And so grateful for you and your team and the work that you all do. And thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
You're welcome.
All individuals have a right to a life free of abuse. If you or someone you know needs help, please call our 24-hour hotline, 417-864-SAFE, 417-864-7233, or chat 24/7 with an advocate on our website at myharmonyhouse.org. Visit our website or follow us on our socials to stay up on the latest news and events. This is Voices Against Violence. Thanks for listening.